to be able to introduce our speaker tonight, Suresvara Prabhu. And one other thing is, he's also an initiating spiritual master in ISKCON. So that's something to keep in mind as well. He is accepting disciples because his the dedication to spreading Lord Chaitanya's movement is.
Haribo.
Thank you very much.
But I don't have any disciples, so I'm
okay.
I'm a childless parent. Everybody's too smart to approach me.
When this happened? Since when?
Yeah, that disaster happened in 2014. I kept it a secret. But now that I'm living in Tucson, Arizona, I have a base once again. Because one of my things I always teach is that I'm a firm believer in local guru-disciple relationships. So while I was traveling all over the world, I had an excuse not to initiate by my own preaching, right? Because I didn't have any place to live. I was a homeless teacher. But I've been here since 2016, so I don't have that excuse anymore. So now I've been approached by a few people, so we'll see how that goes. Anyway. Okay. So I don't know how I'm going to follow that build-up, Vishnu Gada. It's hope I don't disappoint you all too much. So without further ado, thank you so much for coming, everyone, in this, as I said before, bittersweet observance of Prabhupada's disappearance. And what I'm going to share with you tonight is the last lesson in the 10-lesson seminar series I teach. I call it Your Srila Prabhupada. So before we take a look at some ways to access and nourish our personal relationship with Srila Prabhupada, let's consider how our founder Acharya is really for everyone. So there's Srila Prabhupada, one of my favorite pictures, very endearing expression and gesture. And yeah, okay. There's a very early shot of Srila Prabhupada, you can see. This is pre-stroke, pre-May 1967 stroke. Prabhupada's actually in New York. And he's got very simple cloth, one of these early Prabhupada shots. Okay, so in his 1935 public Vyasa Puja homage for Srila Bhakti Siddhanta, and okay, before I go any further, I did hear some noise. So who's going to mute people when they all of a sudden they come roaring in?
That's me. I got
It's
it.
you.
Yeah.
Oh, it's your family. Okay. Families are welcome if they're quiet.
No, I'm the guy. I'll be muting. I don't know where the sound came from.
Okay. Okay, again, in his 1935 public Vyasa Puja homage for Srila Bhakti Siddhanta delivered at the Bombay Gaudiya Math, Prabhupada declared, excuse me, the Acharya Dev, to whom we have assembled tonight to offer our humble homage, is not the guru of a sectarian institution or one out of many differing exponents of the truth. On the contrary, he is the Jagat Guru, the guru of all of us. The only difference is that some obey him wholeheartedly while others do not obey him directly. So that's a quote from Prabhupada's famous speech. Now, 36 years later, so we're looking at 1971, speaking as the founder Acharya of ISKCON, Srila Prabhupada echoed that homage when a reporter asked him a question. So Vishnu Gada Prabhu is going to read the exchange.
In June 1971, when Srila Prabhupada attended the San Francisco Ratha Yatra, a reporter asked him how many disciples he had. Unlimited, Prabhupada said. Some admit and some don't admit. Admit you are a servant of Lord Krishna and your life will be a success.
Yes.
Prabhupada Limited, Volume 4. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No need to read the reference, but so fully surrendered to and empowered by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta and the previous acharyas, our Srila Prabhupada was able to present Krishna consciousness with universal appeal. There was another time in San Francisco when a reporter asked, "What will happen when you die?" And Prabhupada famously replied, "I will never die. I will live forever in my books, and you will utilize." So there, Prabhupada was inviting everyone, even after he was long gone from the world, to connect with him through his everlasting Vani. Okay, so Prabhupada is a universal teacher. He's not simply the guru, as Prabhupada put it, of some sectarian institution, speaking of his own Guru Maharaj. And there is Srila Prabhupada deplaning. They don't make exits from planes like that anymore. A pilot once explained to me why. There's some safety reason they don't exit at the belly anymore. But there is 1974, Prabhupada's landing in Geneva with Satsuru Maharaj as his servant secretary, and then to the right is Guru Guranga Prabhu, still involved with the Swiss Yatra to this day. Let's see here. Yes, okay. Vishnu Gada Prabhu.
Global preacher. In 12 years, Srila Prabhupada circled the globe 14 times and established the Krishna consciousness movement on every major continent. He also initiated thousands of followers and continues to inspire countless more to surrender to Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
I mean, 14 times in 12 years, initiating thousands of people. This is like superhuman. And wherever Prabhupada landed, he just carried on. If it was midnight, okay, now it's time to set up and translate, which he did till roughly 5 a.m. If it was, say, 12 noon or a little earlier, then it was time to get the hot oil massage and dictate answers to letters. If it was 6 in the morning, if he happened to arrive at 6 in the morning, okay, it's time for the morning walk. I mean, Prabhupada, he didn't appear to have jet lag. If he did, he didn't let on. He was just, and that's why we couldn't keep up with him. He just nonstop, 14 times in 12 years. Now, here's a quote. This is in a letter that Prabhupada wrote. And somebody had invited him to attend the Rath Yatra in San Francisco that year, the same year, 1974. Quote, regarding your invitation that I attend the Rath Yatra festival in San Francisco on July 7th, it is possible that I may attend depending on when I finish my European tour. So which he's right in the thick of there in this photo. I am due to arrive in Rome on May 23rd, then after a week, Geneva, then Paris, and possibly Stockholm, Germany, and England. If there is time, I can fly directly from Europe to Los Angeles and go to the festival. And of course, there's another jog up to LA, up to San Fran from LA. Then, as you suggest, go to Australia Rath Yatra via Hawaii. This is known as Jet Age Parivrajagacharya. So Prabhupada said this is known as because he had heard from one of his secretaries, I think they might have brought him the news clip even, somebody writing for the Hindustan Times, a big paper in India, noted that Prabhupada's itinerary, and their journalist said, this is a Jet Age Swami. So Prabhupada said, this is known as Jet Age Parivrajagacharya. That was a letter to Jayatirtha, 5th May, 1974. Now, one critic of Prabhupada's opined that if Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted Krishna consciousness in the Western countries, why didn't he go there himself? So, even if you're doing something amazing, like Prabhupada was doing, you're always going to have critics. So this critic was saying, well, then why didn't Mahaprabhu go there? Why is Swamiji going all over the world? To which Prabhupada shot back, quote, so he left the credit for me. He loves his devotee more than himself. Prabhupada was always so quick with these rejoinders. Okay, now, so far we have universal teacher, global preacher, and yes, okay, Vishnu Gada Prabhu.
Yes. Matchless giver. Srila Prabhupada founded over 100 Hare Krishna temples, schools, farms, and restaurants, all while writing and publishing dozens of translations and commentaries on foundational Vaishnava scriptures.
Oops. Okay, so I mean, if you've ever tried to write a book, it's like so absorbing. I mean, people, they go on writing retreats, they want to get away from it all. It's kind of a lonely passion. It requires such intense concentration. Growing up in the 60s, I remember Norman Mailer, a writer of the day, said, when I spend a day writing, I'm at the end of the day, I feel like I've gone 15 rounds in the ring. It requires so much energy and absorption. So Prabhupada, he actually founded exactly 108 ISKCON entities, temples, schools, farms, and restaurants. And all the while he's translating books. So while pioneering Krishna consciousness on many fronts over 12 years, how did Srila Prabhupada find the time to write so many books? Vishnu Gada is going to tell us when Prabhupada wrote. When did he write, Vishnu?
Oh, early in the morning.
Yeah, he wrote when we were asleep. That was the only time we got any peace because we were so needy, so neophyte. I mean, Prabhupada appreciated, sure, our help. He was always giving credit to us and his Guru Maharaj, never claiming credit for himself. But finally, when we were crashed, Prabhupada's days and nights weren't like ours. You know, we end the day and then we go to sleep 6, 7, 8 hours, depending on what we need. And then we start a new day. But Prabhupada's days were a very interesting weave of full Krishna consciousness, but not really sleeping much. He would nap. So he would, you know, Harish says, typically I would finish the evening dry massage by 10, and then Prabhupada would get up at midnight and then go 5 hours and translate. So a couple hours at night, then he would take an hour, maybe after breakfast, and maybe take an hour and a half after lunch. So 2, 3, so maybe between 4 and 5 hours. He didn't sleep much, and he used those wee hours, those quiet hours, which are really worth more than their weight in gold, to concentrate. And he was always begging us, especially the leaders, please take over the management. If I have to think about what's going on in Bombay while I'm trying to dictate these purports after meditating on the commentaries of several previous acharyas, I can't do it. Every word has to be documented, Prabhupada said. So, but we were so needy and neophyte that practically to the end, Prabhupada he had to manage. Okay. So Prabhupada did not sleep that much, which Prabhupada, frankly, he even would say things now when he would lie down to sleep. Now I'm going to waste my time. So he didn't sleep like the Goswamis, you know, nidraha rivihadaka divijito. They conquered over eating and sleeping because they were gopi bhava rasam nilahari. They were diving and surfacing in the waves of the gopis' love for Krishna. So Prabhupada, he was diving and surfacing in the ocean of compassion. He was writing not just for us, but for the whole world. Soaring off to the end of the millennium, he was writing what he said would be the law books for humanity for the next 10,000 years. Another short sleeper is the cow, to whom Srila Prabhupada would sometimes compare himself. In his memories of Srila Prabhupada, Guru Das reports that once in Bombay, he told Srila Prabhupada he was concerned not enough people would show up for an engagement the devotees had arranged. Srila Prabhupada replied, "No, I'm like a cow. I give milk anywhere. That is what I like to do." Okay, matchless giver. And there's Prabhupada in LA. Usually you see Prabhupada looking right at you in those LA crimson vyasas and gong shots. But here Prabhupada's looking up. It's almost like he's looking right at Krishna. So, Shakti Vesh Avatar, Vishnu Gadar Prabhu.
Yeah. Unless one is empowered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, one cannot spread the holy names of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra throughout the world. Persons who do so are empowered. Therefore, they are sometimes called Avesh Avatar, or empowered incarnations, for they are endowed with the power of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
So what's especially endearing for me about this particular CC purport excerpt is that although Prabhupada's own activities were those of a Shaktivesh avatar, extraordinarily empowered Acharya, since he was absolutely transparent to Krishna, he never thought of or presented himself as such. Such a great soul is very rare. You know, in stark contrast to so many gurus and swamis who were coming in the 60s and 70s, who were saying, "I'm the avatar, I'm the one." But that Prabhupada never did that. He didn't call it the Bhaktivedanta Swami movement. He called it the Hare Krishna movement. It's our duty now as his followers to make the world aware of his greatness and encourage them to enter that wide, opulent path Prabhupada has opened back to Godhead. Now, if Srila Prabhupada is for everyone, he is certainly for everyone in his own ISKCON, as we will now hear. Okay, so there's the picture that really spoke to me when I was first coming in Boston, 1970. Yeah, and there's Prabhupada. This is so compassionate, so heavy, so transparent, so compassionate. And yeah, okay, so ISKCON's founder Acharya. So in 1994, the GBC and ISKCON had sufficiently recovered from a dark era we all went through in the 1980s when there were so many, out of ignorance and immaturity, there were, we didn't really understand the difference between an Acharya and a founder Acharya. So we went through this era, you may have heard, if you're young, you may not have, the zonal Acharya era. But by the 90s, GBC managed ISKCON, felt confident to publish a resolution. This was the first time that the GBC published a resolution about Prabhupada's position. And we're going to look at, I think, just the first element in this one. So Vishnu Gadar Prabhu, you want to read that?
Yeah, 1994 GBC resolution number 35, the founder Acharya statement. A, Srila Prabhupada is the foundational Shiksha Guru for all ISKCON devotees.
Now I have ... because there's more for each letter, but just for the sake of brevity, to fitting on the slide, I did that. B,
Srila Prabhupada's instructions are the essential teachings for every ISKCON devotee. C, Srila Prabhupada's books are the embodiment of his teachings and should be accepted as the standard by all future generations of ISKCON. D, Srila Prabhupada should be worshipped daily by every ISKCON member. E. Every spiritual master is responsible to guide his disciples to follow Srila Prabhupada's instructions.
Thank you. Yeah, so there were 5 parts to that resolution. Now, I wasn't there, but a godbrother of mine was there. And actually, he wasn't there in March when the resolution was passed, 94. But he was in Mayapur several months later for Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja Day, right in Mayapur where that resolution was passed. So he was walking in the courtyard. If you've been to Mayapur, you know where the courtyard is off the Panchatattva temple, the side, you know, where they sell the Mahaprasadam. So he was chanting japa on Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja morning. And, it was a half-day fast. So he was chanting and walking around. And then in the corner of the courtyard, my godbrother, he spies a local brahmachari chomping down at a big piece of pizza. So he walks over to the brahmachari and as tactfully and as diplomatic as he can be, he says, "Oh, Prabhu, maybe you didn't know. Today is Srila Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja and we're all fasting till noon." So the brahmachari looks up at him rather defiantly and says, "Well, you say that because he's your guru. He's not my guru." And my godbrother was so shocked by that reply, he didn't say a word. He just walked away. So obviously no one had informed this brahmachari about this resolution that was passed, right in his own campus. And for him to be doing that with relative impunity until my godbrother had spotted him indicates that maybe the culture hadn't recovered all that much from a Diksha Guru-centered culture in the 80s. It hadn't quite gone all the way to a founder Acharya-centered culture because that was his attitude. So the resolution was passed, but no one told him, or there was no follow-up. There was no, you can legislate all you want, but unless you educate, then people won't. They'll just stick with their old ways. Okay. So let's see here. Excuse me. So the next slide is a collage. And I like to say that Srila Prabhupada is our transcendental Renaissance man. Now, Renaissance man is a concept from the European Renaissance, and the classic Renaissance man in European history culture is Da Vinci, because he was a fine artist, he was a scientist, his intelligence was so many-sided. It's not common you see that kind of intelligence. He gave us everything from the Mona Lisa to the blueprints for the helicopter, hundreds of years ahead of its time. But now just consider our Srila Prabhupada, how all-sided Prabhupada's intelligence and abilities and empowerment was. So I've made this little collage. Connect with your Srila Prabhupada. And there's so many ways to connect with Srila Prabhupada. This photo collage shows some of the many sides of Srila Prabhupada's greatness. From top left. So there's Prabhupada in the top left corner, and it's Prabhupada, the plain living pioneer. Prabhupada I always thought he was walking into a Talavan, because he did visit there in 1975, August, the farm down there in north of New Orleans. But when I was presenting in France, the devotees immediately recognized that halfway from the airport between Paris and New Mayapur, there's this place where Prabhupada stopped and took some prasad. And yeah, so they immediately spotted that. So Srila Prabhupada, the plain living pioneer. It was such a rustic shot. I used that to capture that. So Prabhupada's, that was his vision. that the whole world would actually become interested in Krishna consciousness when we not only talked about Krishna culture, but we showed the world a better way to live. So the plain living pioneer. And then in the middle slide top, you see Prabhupada in what came to be called Hippie Hill in Golden Gate Park, San Francisco, 1967. Prabhupada sitting down right amongst the hippies. And in those days, in the 60s, Prabhupada would be talking about a world Sankirtan party, which he wanted to start and lead all over the world. And then later on, of course, so many devotees came that he was able to do that through his own disciples. We became familiar fixtures on the street corners of the world. So World Sankirtan Party leader, and that's the first clay mridanga that was in ISKCON. It had come. Finally, Narayan Maharaj had mailed it to San Fran, and then Prabhupada gave Mukunda Prabhu at the time, now Mukunda Maharaj, the first mridanga lesson on a real clay mridanga. And then on the right, there's a younger edition of our Malati Prabhu, GBC, Malati Mataji, adoring Prabhupada on the beach. Malati tells these wonderful stories how Swamiji would take them to the beach and they'd have these wonderful kirtans. And she said after one bonfire kirtan, they'd roast potatoes over the bonfire. And then after one kirtan, Prabhupada said the Prema Dvani prayers, Jayom prayers. And then at the end of the prayers, Prabhupada said, all glories to the Pacific Ocean. And they thought it was so cool that Swamiji was honoring their ocean where they had just recently been surfing and, So that's Prabhupada, the founding father, the family leader, the Vaishnavi empowerer. Prabhupada, as much as he preached Vedic wisdom and Vedic values, he knew also how to apply the same timeless teachings in very modern ways. So someone like a Malati or a Jamuna, he didn't force them into Vedic boxes. He took them with him to India, and he had them worshiping the deity. He had them address thousands of people in pandals. He just brought them to their full potential in Krishna service. Lower left, there's Srila Prabhupada. How do I say here? Prasadam Master, there's Prabhupada. Now, many places claim this picture. New Orleans claims it, the New Orleans farm, New Talavan. I believe that's where it is. But you find other places claiming it. And no one could cook better than His Divine Grace, and he's teaching them how to make some prep there. And there's his famous cooker on the burner in the background behind that spoon he's holding. Famous cooker. Let's see here. Prasada Master in the middle, bottom middle. This is a frame from, there's a movie Yadabar shot called Brilliant as the Sun, which Yadabar premiered in Prabhupada's last visit to LA, 1976, June. It showed the production of Srila Prabhupada's books from the dictation, which Prabhupada is doing there, and then all the way to the distribution, and then people getting a book. It was a really nice movie. It was about a 20-minute movie of showing the full cycle of the books, how they start and how they go out and how they recruit and how devotees are inspired. Lower right, deity installer. There's Prabhupada famously installing Shri Shri Radha Gokulananda at Janmashtami at the Manor, 1973, August. Yeah. Perhaps you've seen the movies. Prabhupada starts jumping and then he starts circumambulating the deities. You can't even do that now at the Manor because of the way they've built the altar up with Sitaram, Lakshman, Hanuman. But Prabhupada just led the devotees in ecstatic circumambulation. So to connect with Srila Prabhupada is to connect with one or more of his magnanimous aspects. In the next slide, we'll see and hear how we can all connect with Srila Prabhupada in a foundational way. So there are as many ways to connect with Srila Prabhupada practically as there are people. Because, you know, when people would come to Srila Prabhupada, he would very often, if they were ready, he would say, so what do you like? What do you do? Or what do you like to do? And then he would show them, he would inspire them how they could do the same thing they were already doing for Krishna. So there are so many ways to connect with Srila Prabhupada. So we're just going to examine a couple of ways in the interest of time. And now the next slide, we're going to hear Prabhupada's words. Let me set the scene here. It's 1968. It's August. It's Montreal. Prabhupada is welcoming his pioneer preachers from San Francisco, Shamsundar, Malati, Gurudas Jamuna, and Mukunda and Janaki. They're on their way to England. They're going for the Rhino, if you've been reading the Rhino series. Their aim is to beat the Beatles and to set all of the UK on fire with Krishna consciousness through that inspiration of meeting the Beatles. So they stop in Montreal, about halfway from San Fran, across the pond. And they're getting inspiration and encouragement from His Divine Grace. And there's someone else who came with them from San Francisco. My dear senior god sister, Rukmini Devi Dasi, the wife of our international communications director, Anuttama Prabhu. So she was a young girl, she's only 16 years old, totally thrilled with meeting the devotees in San Francisco. And she followed them to Montreal because she heard that they were going to meet Prabhupada. She wanted to meet Prabhupada. So she went out. And then on August 15th, 68, she was initiated. 3 days later, Prabhupada's giving a Bhagavatam class. And she asks a question. And the question basically is, when you're not here, physically, I feel so far away from you. I feel so distant. So you're going to hear Prabhupada's response now. And without saying Vani or Vapu, he just made it very clear how to always be close to him. So here we go.
That you should not think. There are two conceptions, the physical conception and the vibration conception. The physical conception is temporary. The vibration conception is eternal. Just like we are enjoying or we are relishing the vibration of Krishna's teachings. So my vibration is present. As soon as we chant Hare Krishna or chant Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavad, so he is present immediately by his vibration. So we should give more stress on the sound vibration, either of Krishna or of the spiritual master, then we'll feel happy and no separation.
And Rukmini took it to heart, and she was satisfied, and she's been practicing that for 52 years. So the first and foremost way we can all connect with Srila Prabhupada is by becoming keen students of his spoken and written word. You know, in the books, this is a generalization, but Prabhupada is sort of laying down the law. He's establishing principles. And then on things like morning walks and room conversations and also letters, we get so many examples from Prabhupada of how he's applying those principles in his own life and in our lives. So the whole Vani, the spoken, the written word, that's all really vital for us to get a well-rounded picture of our founder Acharya. Regular attentive hearing from our founder Acharya, especially while serving with his serious and sincere followers, grounds us in the foundational relationship that will sustain and enrich all other relationships. Here are two legendary devotees who did just that. So we're going to look at two famous devotees no longer with us on this world, who really took hearing from Prabhupada very seriously. And they were very close to Prabhupada, physically also, especially in the beginning. But they were so different as night and day. And there was the famous Jayananda Prabhu on the left, walking with Prabhupada. Of course, in San Francisco, they'd walk in Golden Gate Park. And then on the right, there is Jamuna with Prabhupada. And there's a Gaur Sundars in back of Prabhupada's hat there. I think it's Gargamuni in back of Jamuna too. So Srila Prabhupada and Jayananda Prabhu, Srila Prabhupada and Jamuna Devi. Now, Jayananda Prabhu and Jamuna Devi were among the first to join Srila Prabhupada's movement in San Francisco in 1967. Deeply dedicated to Srila Prabhupada from the start, they were also as different as night and day. To meet Jayananda was to meet a big, strong, humble worker in Srila Prabhupada's mission, especially at Ratha Yatra time. Srila Prabhupada's incredible strength and humility came through in Jayananda's character and behavior. I never knew Jayananda until the last year of his life when he came to LA after his body was being racked by leukemia, blood cancer. And he came to LA to mastermind LA's first Ratha Yatra, which he never lived to see. But he did mastermind the building of the carts and the permits, and he was just, and I got to talk with him sometimes, and he was just an incredible person, so qualified, but so humble. You know, it was like absolute power coming through absolute humility. So he's manifesting that aspect of Prabhupada. Now, to meet Jamuna was to meet a queen of devotion, expressed especially through her cooking, music, and exquisite deity worship. Srila Prabhupada, the cultural conqueror, came through in Jamuna's character and behavior. I also never knew Jamuna until years later, until like the 1990s. And then I visited her in Sharanagati when she and her friend Dina Tarni were living there. And and also, the first time I met her was in 1993, December. It was kind of a wild coincidence because we were being invited by Abhiram Prabhu, many older Western families or household or just people, to come to South India and to check out a farm community in the wilds of South India, to see if it were feasible that Westerners could live there. As it turned out, it didn't work out. But anyway, Jamuna, on Christmas Eve, it was an Ekadashi in South India, where Christmas is big because there's a lot of Christians in South India. Jamuna insisted on shopping for the ingredients and cooking and offering with her own hand and then serving with her own hand to all of us a Christmas Ekadashi feast in honor of Srila Prabhupada. And while she was serving out the feast, she was telling us these most incredible, intimate Prabhupada stories. So it was like the highlight of my whole trip to India. And so she was just a real cultured person, or that was the side of Prabhupada that attracted her, and it really became her signature, the side of her character that you got. It became, when you talk to Jamuna, it was like you were with Prabhupada in that aspect. Same with Jayananda. When you talk to Jayananda, you were meeting this incredible person of incredible strength and determination and humility. And that side of Prabhupada. Different as they were, Jayananda and Jamuna shared a deep love of hearing from Srila Prabhupada. By developing a similar love, a unique aspect of Srila Prabhupada's glories will also manifest through us. So we also have a certain nature which we can connect with Srila Prabhupada a certain aspect of his mission. And by surrendering to Srila Prabhupada, that side of Prabhupada and that aspect of his mission will manifest through us. And that's how people will be inspired by us coming to Krishna consciousness. They'll approach us to enrich, enhance, and deepen their relationship with Srila Prabhupada by taking shelter of us. And that's how Guru Parampara works. Okay, so let's look at connecting with Srila Prabhupada. Vishnu Gada Prabhu.
Yes. Connecting by finding and making your best contribution to our founder Acharya's mission.
Now, Srila Prabhupada emphasized that helping the spiritual master serve Krishna's mission is the best way to become dear to the Lord. Now, read this excerpt from an incredible purport.
When one becomes serious to follow the mission of the spiritual master, his resolution is tantamount to seeing the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Isn't that amazing? Prabhupada's saying, if the way to see God is to become completely surrendered to, absorbed in the mission of one spiritual master. And here's a little further down in the same purport. In conclusion, if a disciple is very serious to execute the mission of the spiritual master, he immediately associates with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is the only secret of success in seeing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Instead of being eager to see the Lord in some bush of Vrindavan, Prabhupada can't resist taking a swipe at the Sahajis, right? While at the same time engaging in sense gratification, if one instead sticks to the principle of following the words of the spiritual master, he will see the Supreme Lord without difficulty. Prabhupada also told us, quote, my Guru Maharaj used to say that don't try to see God, you work in such a way that God will see you. So, but as we're approaching the end of this lesson, we may still wonder, does developing our foundational relationship with Srila Prabhupada mean we are somehow, quote, jumping over our Diksha and Shiksha gurus? That was a phrase that Prabhupada actually used, jumping, and we're going to hear him say it right now. There's that jumper. He beat out all the monkeys I could find on Google Images. This is a lemur from the Comoro Islands off the coast of Madagascar, where they have these incredible jumping primates called lemurs. Now, some background in this quote, you're going to hear Prabhupada say something. In the early 1970s, as more devotees started to visit India, some were fascinated by Gaudiya Math books available in English, like Srila Bhaktivinoda, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, especially those of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So they asked Srila Prabhupada if they could read them. Now, of course, Prabhupada, he would answer the same question different ways and different times to different people, depending on the mentality of the questioner. But let's hear how Prabhupada answered the question in December 1973 in Los Angeles. Here goes the audio.
You cannot imagine what my spiritual master said. Or even if you read some books, you cannot understand unless you understand it from me. This is called Parampara system. You cannot jump over to the superior guru, I want to say, neglecting the next acharya, immediate next acharya.
Okay. Now that soundbite might have piqued your interest because, anyway, I'll just read my notes here. Since during his brief time with us, Srila Prabhupada was the only bona fide guru we knew, we really did not deeply understand his unique position as our founder Acharya, because Prabhupada, he was the initiator, the instructor, the grandfather, in some cases the introducer, all rolled into one. So his position as founder Acharya for all time, the ramifications of that were not really manifest to us while he was physically with us. After Srila Prabhupada's disappearance, ISKCON's new gurus sometimes confused following him with imitating him, and the consequences were devastating. Over time, we've come to realize that a prime duty of our Shiksha and Diksha gurus is to deepen, enhance, and enrich our foundational relationship with Srila Prabhupada. If, quote, no jumping over, you see where Prabhupada says that? You cannot jump over. If no jumping over means no neglecting one's, quote, immediate next Acharya, how much more does that apply to Srila Prabhupada, our foundational Acharya, from whom we derive our core identity and through whom we see all teachers and teachings? In other words, Prabhupada isn't simply a previous Acharya. He's the founder Acharya through whom we see all teachers and teachings. He provides our core identity, our foundational relationship. He's not simply our upline in the parampara, to borrow a term from multi-level marketing. As we get to know ourselves in relationship to Srila Prabhupada, with a cool head, we will be able to aspire for Diksha and Shiksha gurus who can help us make our best contribution to his mission. Sometimes I joke that if I were, so right now my body it's about to turn 74. So let's say I was actually 24 again. I was 23 when I joined in Boston. So let's say I was 23 today. So after if I were fortunate, I'd be grounded in Prabhupada's books. My mentors, my seniors would insist that they would ground me in Prabhupada's books. That's your foundational relationship. And then after getting to know yourself and Srila Prabhupada and the mission, then we can think about who we can approach for Shiksha, Diksha, who's going to help me realize my full potential in Prabhupada's mission, who's going to enrich, enhance, and deepen that already existing foundational relationship with Srila Prabhupada. So sometimes I think, well, I like drama and I like to walk. So maybe I would notice that we have this sannyasi in Toronto named Bhakti Marg Swami, who likes to walk all over the place, and he likes to put on dramas. So maybe I would approach him. Hey, Maharaj, I like to walk. I like dramas. Could we explore a guru-disciple relationship with you? Now, that's not the only criteria for initiation, but it helps if prospective guru and prospective disciple before the fact, too often it's too quick, before the fact, they engage in a mutual examination process. And we're going to look at that. Oh, I'm sorry. This is a one-off. I was thinking we were in the series. That's one of the lessons I teach, finding our mentors in his mission. Okay, so no jumping over, but really the idea is we don't jump over Srila Prabhupada because he's our foundational guru. The more deeply we connect with Srila Prabhupada, the more responsibility we have to pass on his unique legacy to others. Okay, so Vishnu Gada Prabhu?
Yeah. Imbibe and impart Srila Prabhupada's legacy.
Yeah, it's not just enough to soak it up, right? We've got to pass it on. So let's look at one of my favorite purport excerpts in this regard. Go ahead.
Personal realization does not mean that one should, out of vanity, attempt to show one's own learning by trying to surpass the previous acharya. He must have full confidence in the previous acharya, and at the same time, he must realize the subject matter so nicely that he can present the matter for the particular circumstances in a suitable manner. The original purpose of the text must be maintained. No obscure meaning should be screwed out of it. Yet, it should be presented in an interesting manner for the understanding of the audience. This is called realization.
Wow, that is really stunning. So the more we immerse ourselves in our founder Acharya's life teachings, mood, and mission, the more we will understand how to be both faithful and fresh as we present him all over again. To represent actually means to represent, to present all over again, amid ever-changing times, places, and people. Srila Prabhupada wants us all to carry his legacy and become regular gurus, not to imitate or replace him, but to follow in his footsteps. So whenever younger devotees say to me they can't imagine what ISKCON will be like after the last, quote, Prabhupada disciple leaves the planet, I become more convinced how important it is for all generations of devotees to understand our foundational identity as Prabhupada Anugas, Prabhupada followers, imbibe his unique legacy, and impart it to others. So I'm going to end the lesson before the Q&A with, I just took this right out of that GBC foundational document called Srila Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of ISKCON, that Ravinder Sarup Prabhu wrote and rewrote, and we really put him through his paces on that. And finally, we got it to a point in 2014 where everybody was satisfied we could publish it. And he ended the book with some bullet points. And these, what follows are the bullet points of the benefits of deeply understanding Srila Prabhupada's unique position and our relationship with him. So let's have Vishnu Gada Prabhu reads these points. Go ahead.
Benefits of deeply understanding Srila Prabhupada's position. Generation after generation will be able to receive the special mercy offered by Srila Prabhupada. The path back to Godhead he opened will become ever increasingly traveled. Srila Prabhupada's active presence will secure the unity and integrity of ISKCON, strengthening both the GBC and guru-disciple bonds.
That's our central challenge. To really cooperate amidst those sometimes conflicting lines of authority between guru and disciple and between, GBC, temple presidents. We have to find our common allegiance in Prabhupada's not just final wish, but he was always saying cooperate. So, yeah, okay. And next?
By taking full shelter of Srila Prabhupada as Siksha Guru in his Vani manifestation, all teachers in ISKCON on various levels of advancement will be able to authentically convey Srila Prabhupada's real teachings, thus giving proper guidance, shelter, and protection to all.
Good.
ISKCON's teachings will remain consistent over space and time. Prabhupada's realized knowledge, endowing him with a specific potency to spread Krishna consciousness, will not only be preserved, but also developed. His books will remain central to us, for they contain insights and directions that await future development to be realized.
Perhaps the most famous example is Prabhupada's whole emphasis at the end on Varnashram, saying that this was the 50% he hadn't done. And it's all there in the Vani, but he didn't have time to manifest it. So that's our job. And, whoops.
Srila Prabhupada's eyes will always remain the lens through which all future generations see our predecessor acharyas.
Yes. Okay. And then, yeah. So, Vishnu Gadaprabhu can read that.
All glories to our beloved founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada and to every follower's foundational relationship with him.
Yay. Okay, that's actually the last slide of the last lesson in the whole 10-part Founder Acharya series. And before we do the Q&A, I'm just going to read the learning outcomes. By the end of the lesson, students will be able to describe how Srila Prabhupada is for everyone, describe how we can better connect with our own Srila Prabhupada and reflect an aspect of his limitless glories, explain how to represent Srila Prabhupada effectively while sharing his unique legacy, and identify the benefits of deeply understanding Srila Prabhupada's unique position. So now I'm very happy to be quiet because when I speak, I cough. And I'd like to hear some questions and comments, reflections from you all for the next maybe 25 minutes.
I want to ask the devotees, well, first of all, thank you so much, Suresvara Prabhu. Wonderful, wonderful presentation. As devotees ask the questions, I ask that you either raise your hand virtually with the button at the bottom of your Zoom bar, or you can type it in the chat. So we have 2 questions already that popped up in the chat, and then I have 1 hand up already. So as you may have predicted, Suresvara Prabhu, Acharya Prabhu had the first question.
Yes, and his wife is conveying it. I see. Sue Devi has raised her hand.
She has her hand up. He wrote something in the chat.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to read that, and the hands are starting to go up. So, your brilliant presentation of Srila Prabhupada's multifaceted personality reminded me of something His Holiness Satsuru Das Goswami wrote years ago. He discussed the concept of my Prabhupada. Example, everyone has a unique relationship and a unique appreciation for a different range of Srila Prabhupada's qualities, teachings, and services. He also mentioned the negative side of creating an illusory Prabhupada to support prejudices and our points of view. Can you discuss the positive and negative possibilities of this idea? Thank you.
So Acharya asked me to comment on that?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Yeah, very good point. Yes, I in fact, maybe in some unconscious, subconscious level, Satsuru Maharaj's my Prabhupada may have inspired this lesson. Yeah, Maharaj talks about this a lot to this day. If you subscribe to his free write newsletters, so sure, there is that negative potential too. That along with imbibing a personal relationship with Prabhupada, we can also, because of our own, what I call a desire filter, like Sariputta Prabhu used to talk about the knowledge filter, where people just can't hear alternative possibilities to science because they're so set on a certain paradigm. But perhaps the deepest filter is the desire filter, where we have agendas that we're not even aware of in our subconscious that are not allowing us to admit the messages and the examples of full surrender to Krishna, because on some level, we're still afflicted with some, resentment, which is why we came here in the first place, the original sin, not wanting to be with Krishna and resenting Krishna's supremacy. So how to keep from having an illusory, Prabhupada? Borijan Prabhu also talks about this in his book, My Glorious Master, how he and his good wife Jagatarini, they were alone in Hong Kong, and they they asked Prabhupada permission because they were all alone. They didn't have any association. Actually, they did have some, but it wasn't even good. It was association that was critical of ISKCON. So there they were all alone in Hong Kong, far, both of them far from their homeland. And so Borijan started by asking Prabhupada in a letter if he could grow his hair out a little so we can reach the students, so we wouldn't be present such a stark, image right off the bat, dhotis and shaved heads. And so Prabhupada said, yeah, if that will help the students listen here, then that's okay. So from that initial permission, Borijan talks about how he and Jagatarini, they started in Hong Kong, they started by going to bed early, getting up early, having a morning program, deity worship, and then they'd go to work. They actually had to work to support themselves, to support their little griha in Hong Kong. But gradually over time, because a lot of the students were coming late, they were coming in the evening after their studies. So it became a whole different life. They were staying up late and then getting up late and then chanting their rounds after work in a very, distracted way. And then also they got a telegram from Prabhupada, from Satsrupa Maharaj actually, who said, Prabhupada and I are coming. And then Prabhupada came with Satsrupa Maharaj. And so Borijan rented a Rolls Royce or a Bentley with some famous car or some, fancy car to pick up Prabhupada. They hired somebody, they paid somebody a lot of money to make a fancy rose garland. and then they picked up Prabhupada at the airport. And then they got Prabhupada in the car, and Borijan is saying, oh, Srila Prabhupada, it's so great. We haven't seen you in so long. It's so wonderful to see you. And they garlanded him. So without batting an eye, Prabhupada looked at them and said, what is your morning program? Prabhupada always knew what was going on. Even he said at the other side of the world, he could just look at Borijan and Jagatarini and see that they were getting pretty shabby. Their creepers were getting pretty beat up. What is your morning program? Well, Srila Prabhupada, the students come at night and then we get up late and we started out with it, but now we can't. So Prabhupada just said, whose disciple are you? He was very unsentimental. So Borijan tells about how he and Jagatarini had been developing an illusory Prabhupada. They were justifying in their minds that, oh, Prabhupada understands, we compromise this principle here and that principle there, and but the preaching is expanding, so it must be okay. But Prabhupada saw two disciples who were getting weaker and weaker, and who, if he didn't intervene, were just on their way out. So Prabhupada, out of his mercy, said that. So how do we? So Borijan mentions, and as Satsrupa mentions, how do we not develop an illusory Prabhupada? Well, the first and foremost way is by the first way we encountered in this lesson, by hearing, by keeping our ears to the ground of Prabhupada's spoken and written word, by being totally absorbed in Prabhupada's Vani in ways that are, as much as possible, are very relevant to what we're doing today. Like before I give a Bhagavatam class here in Tucson, I always hear, we're on the third canto, Lord Kapila and Devahuti, and I always hear the class that Prabhupada gave on that. It's all there in audio, in the archives audio. It's not there for every verse, but it's there for a lot of the third canto verses. So, yeah, we just have to be absorbed, and it's a challenge because we're living in the age of distraction. The age of, the push of a button and we can go all over the universe on our phones. So we can also use our phones to be absorbed in Srila Prabhupada. So that hearing and then acting on what we hear is the best inoculation, and it's the best cure for developing an illusory Prabhupada. That's my practical experience. Good question. Next.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to read these as they've come in. This is from Madhusudana. Hare Krishna, would you please explain Shiksha and Diksha gurus? And would you also please explain Bapu and Vani?
I'm going to give you short answers because Shiksha and Diksha is not settled Siddhanta in ISKCON. If anybody was in Mayapur last February, I took an ILS seminar from Bhanu Swami, who blew our minds by showing us that just from Prabhupada's own Vani, what to speak of going outside, to Bhaktivinoda's writings or, whoever, just from Prabhupada's own Vani, you can make a case for the Shiksha guru being the instructing spiritual master, being the most important, or the initiating spiritual master, right from Prabhupada's own Vani. So bottom line is it depends on the relationship we develop with the person, because really, who is the deliverer anyway? It's Krishna delivering us through a multiplicity of people, introducers, initiators, instructors. So Vani means instructions, or it could, as Prabhupada said in that excerpt we listened to, vibration. He was spoon feeding the devotees. He wasn't quoting Sanskrit. Physical and vibration. And I had a very powerful realization of this on a morning walk in Miami Beach, 1975 February. Prabhupada's one and only visit to Miami. We just come up from Caracas. And I was on a walk with Prabhupada. And the sand was very steep, the sandbanks, and it was coming down just practically to the ocean. So there was only room for us to walk single file. So we'd walk single file behind Srila Prabhupada, and then somebody would call out a question from behind, and then Prabhupada would stop, turn, and face us to answer. So in the kind of roller derby jostling of bodies to get near Prabhupada physically, at one point, I stopped right in back of Prabhupada's head. But I was so much in Maya that that's all I could think of. I didn't hear the question that was called out from behind, which had compelled Prabhupada to stop. I was just looking at the back of Prabhupada's head, the golden brown Bengali complexion, the three silver hairs that had traveled from Prabhupada's head down to the back of his neck, the male pattern baldness. So the silvery shikha hairs and in Prabhupada's head. I was like a kid at a rock concert. And I was thinking, wow, Jagat Guru, Srila Prabhupada. I'm right 1 foot from Prabhupada's head. And you know what happened? I got some real mercy. I heard a voice. It wasn't a voice in the sky. It was just an inner voice. I take it was Krishna. And the voice, you know what the voice said? Yes, you are right in back of Srila Prabhupada's head, but you, my friend, are nowhere near Srila Prabhupada. You are nowhere near him. You cannot hear what he's saying. So that produced in me like whiplash of two emotions. My first emotion was I was totally mortified that even though I was right next to Prabhupada, I was nowhere near him. And then I went from the agony to the ecstasy of realizing it's true. Vani is more important than Vapu. That Prabhupada's messages, his words, his instructions, his vibration are more important than his physical form. And that was my inoculation against Prabhupada leaving the planet, which he did almost 3 years later in November 77. Today is the lunar day. And as devastating as that event was for all of us, November 14th, 1977, I understood that we all have an equal opportunity. Someday I could really meet Srila Prabhupada in the spiritual dimension. It's for all of us, not just a few who are near him physically. And Jamuna Devi, who loved to hear from Srila Prabhupada, she tells the story. She told this in Mayapur the last time she was in Mayapur, 2010, I think, in the community hall. So she told how when Prabhupada brought her and about 20 devotees, his dancing white elephants, as he called the Western disciples, because Prabhupada knew they would be a hit, a novelty. Okay, my dear Indian brethren, you want to imitate the Westerners, you want to imitate the Americans, imitate these Americans. They've seen the whole thing of it. They're fed up. They've seen all the opulence that you were craving, that you're worshiping America and materialism. Now, they've seen the whole thing. Now, imitate these people. So it was Kumbh Mela, January 71. Devotees were with Prabhupada. And pretty austere, pretty chilly. Prabhupada had his own tent. The women had their tent. The men had their tent. It was a cooking tent. And there was a speaking engagement. The devotees had set it up. And they were all waiting for Prabhupada to come into the tent. It was a full house, a lot of guests, because the devotees had a good spot, a good location at the Mela. So Jamuna said, so I was sitting right in front of the microphone where I always sat from the early days in the Haight-Ashbury in San Francisco on 518 Frederick Street. I always sat right in front of Srila Prabhupada. And in London, I always sat. I just loved to hear him speak. His words were just so wonderful, nectar. So she's sitting there waiting for Prabhupada to come in. And all of a sudden she hears, "Psst, Jamuna, you see where the Indian ladies are sitting? Around to the side and a little behind. You should sit with them." It was a Western sannyasi. So Jamuna thought, what? I always sit right in front. I want to be as close to Prabhupada as possible. But she thought, I wonder what this is all about. So she just sort of decided to explore. So she got up, she went behind where the Indian ladies were sitting, sat down. Prabhupada comes out, gives a knockout lecture, great questions, roaring applause. Everybody files out. Prabhupada goes back to his tent. And the devotees start setting up for the next event. And they're scurrying around. And in Prabhupada's tent comes down to about a foot from the ground. So as the devotees are scurrying around, Prabhupada's sitting in his tent chanting japa, and he can tell from the bottom of everybody's dhoti and sari who is near his tent. So Jamuna is walking by Prabhupada's tent, and all of a sudden she hears, Jamna, Jamna. Prabhupada, that's the way he said Jamuna. Oh, so Jamuna goes in, bows down. Yes, Srila Prabhupada? So, you do not like to hear me anymore? Whoa, this was too much. You do not like to hear me anymore. Jamuna just couldn't, she just burst out crying, uncontrollably, sobbing. And then she collected herself and she described what happened, that this sannyasi had suggested she sit behind where the Indian ladies were. And then when she could, then she finally said, so Srila Prabhupada, what should I do? And Prabhupada put his head down. And he didn't say anything for the longest time. And then he finally said, yeah, this is India. This is India. So Jamuna got a hint that when Prabhupada spreading Krishna consciousness all over the world, as Prabhupada said, you do it according to time, country, candidate. India is not the Haight-Ashbury or even London. So there's certain etiquettes. So then Jamuna asked Prabhupada a question for her own spiritual life, to know what to do. She asked him a very intelligent question. She said, Srila Prabhupada, how many times were you with your Guru Maharaj? And Prabhupada said, oh, maybe 5 or 6 times, but those were very intimate times. Guru Maharaj, he always wanted to share something intimate with me. And sometimes the godbrothers would criticize, because sometimes Guru Maharaj would insist I sit on the same seat with him, on the same level. So the godbrothers would say, fools rush in where angels' fears tread. So Prabhupada said, well, fool I may have been, but what could I do? Guru Maharaj, he wanted to share something confidential. And then Prabhupada said, Guru Maharaj told me that those who always wanted to be with him, seen with him, they are like mosquitoes, Prabhupada said, simply sucking blood, just taking from the Guru, wanted to be seen with the Guru. So Jamuna got the hint that if she were to continue to develop her relationship with Srila Prabhupada and come closer to him, and she also did still a lot of personal Vapu service. In 72, they did the whole nectar devotion thing in the Radha Damodar courtyard, and she was cooking for Prabhupada every day. And then she and Guru Das, helped, they spearheaded the initial launch of the Krishna Balaram Mandir construction. But Jamuna got it early on that if I want to come closer to Srila Prabhupada, Vani Prabhupada, forever Prabhupada, eternal Prabhupada, I have to become absorbed in his teachings, in his life, his teachings, his motives, and his mission, as we all do. Yeah. So I forgot the question now. I got so absorbed in the story. What was the question again?
Can you explain the term?
Oh, Vani and Vapu. Yeah, and
Vani,
Siksha and
Vani
Diksha. Yeah, so Vani is vibration, Vapu is physical form, and Siksha is instruction, and Diksha is initiating. And that's all I'm going to say on the subject, because it's an ongoing, especially Siksha and Diksha, it's an ongoing discussion at the highest levels of our leadership in ISKCON. We have about 5 minutes.
Next question is Mother.
Excuse me.
Mother Sudevi, you there?
Yes, Hare Krishna, Suresvara Prabhu,
Hare
thank
Krishna,
you very much.
Maharaji. Hi.
Yes, Prabhu, this is so very wonderful teaching about Prabhupada, Founder Acharya. And just a quick question. How would you say we can introduce to new people? I had a friend coming to a temple for quite some time. And then there was a tape of Srila Prabhupada singing bhajan in the temple. And I started singing along and she got, who is that? And I'm like, Prabhupada. And then, like people, I see people coming, they go straight to the deities. And Prabhupada is there. And then, how we give people a mantra card, a book. I'm just thinking, is there some way, like, I don't know, what would you think, a little card telling a little bit about Prabhupada or something like that?
Yeah. Well, there's probably, it's kind of like our own relationship with Prabhupada. Everybody's different. Excuse me. So people are going to respond to Prabhupada in different ways. I'll never forget the first time I heard Prabhupada's voice. It was on a japa tape. We were all barreling down to the Boston Common in a van, boys and girls together, packed into a van. Pradyumna, Sanskrit editor, was practically sitting in my lap. We were so crammed. And it was the din of japa. We were chanting japa. The din of japa in a devotee van. We're just, it's humming. like bees were like humming with the Maha Mantra. And then all of a sudden, I think Prajumya, he had a cassette player. That was the technology of the day. And he must have pushed this button, because over the din of japa, all of a sudden I heard, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And I yelled, "Who's that?" I screamed. And Prajumya turns with his big eyes. He says, "That's Srila Prabhupada." So Prabhupada's voice is so powerful and it's so pure. That's certainly one way, if people are reached more by sound vibration. A very powerful tool to introduce people to Prabhupada is through these, Siddhanta's memory series, or through having a Lilamrita, study group. There's different ways. You get to know Prabhupada, the person, and the Lilamrita, which it's true, I was lucky enough to be involved, at least in the first 3 volumes. You meet the person, Prabhupada, and his life, and everything he went through, before he even started ISKCON. So you get to know him. And so when you read the Gita, if you've read the Lilamrita first, you might even get more out of it in a sense, because you know the author. Oh yeah, this is Bhaktivedanta Swami. And that's why he wrote this, because he went through this in this purport. Prabhupada's purports are so filled with personal realizations. So it just depends, on what's, or you might, as Prabhupada would say, so what do you like to do? Oh, you're an artist. Oh, you're an engineer. Oh, you like to cook. So there's so many ways to connect with Prabhupada. It's just a matter of us getting to know the people and seeing what's the best portal, what's the best gateway to walk them through to begin their Prabhupada Nuga journey. I can't give you a stereotyped answer because it's just different for everybody. But try, those tools, the sound tools and the book, the reading tools and the seva tools.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
We have a question from the Krishna village. Krishna Kirtan, Prabhu.
Yes, Hare Krishna. Suresvara
Hare Krishna.
Prabhu. Very
Right.
grateful. I cannot ask more than this talk today on this special day. And the more we hear from you, and I feel like hearing more and more. Thank you so much. It is really wonderful. Even if we keep on hearing us, we still need more and more clarification. One practical question I have is now, you mentioned about GBC resolution. Is 1980 somewhere, right? Prabhupada's to be worshipped by
1994.
94.
By the 1994, the GBC and ISKCON had sufficiently recovered that we were recovered enough, not completely, and still not completely, from the Diksha Guru-centered culture to the founder Acharya-centered culture. It was a good start, 1994. And then in 2013, there was even a better resolution, but we're still working on it. But go ahead.
Yes. Thank you. So I know in 1994, still I believe the temples were mostly, devotees. Temples are running, the resident devotees were there. And now it's mostly temples are, towards the congregation based. So in temples, we still, worship Prabhupada daily. And at home, what is the expectation? One has initiating spiritual master, and also your Prabhupada. So in general, I know as a Guru Puja, we can worship spiritual master and paramparas, everyone. But what is the suggestion then? I'm sorry, I'm asking this question. So
I'm trying to. I just want to make sure I understand the question. It's Diksha Guru worship, for example, vis-a-vis founder Acharya worship. You're trying to get the standard.
Right, the Guru Puja when we do at home. Mostly congregation based, and devotees lived at their home, not much in the temple. So Is the Guru Puja to be done to the initiating Guru at home?
Well, Prabhupada instituted founder Acharya worship actually in Bombay in 1974. In Bombay, yeah. He instituted, and it was revolutionary actually. Previously, when we greet the deities, we just go in front of the deities, with some flowers, and Prabhupada led the devotees in this, with some flowers, and they'd all offer flowers to the deities. And then one fine morning, I think it was April 10th, 1974 in Bombay, Prabhupada, he offered a flower to Shri Radharasa Bihari, and then he walked to his Vyasasan, and he taught the devotees a new song, which we know now as Sri Guru Charita Padma, Sri Guru Vandana. And that was the beginning. And he did this in front of the deities. And it says in Nectar Devotion, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, you don't worship anybody in front of the deities. But Prabhupada, to strengthen ISKCON for the long term, again, we didn't really understand all the ramifications because he was the only guru in ISKCON. But he taught us this song, and it became daily Guru Puja to him. And then it was, I remember when our temple president, I was living in Gainesville, Florida, Amarendra was our temple president, and he came back with a song. So Guru Puja was added to the morning program before Bhagavatam class, after greeting the deities. So we thought, oh, cool, a new song, Shri Guru Charanapa. But we didn't realize, again, the full implications of that, because Prabhupada was the only guru in ISKCON. Now that we have a multi-guru culture, many Guru Maharajas, many Guru Devs, we see the significance of Prabhupada's position. He's not simply an Acharya, one of the many Acharyas, or a previous Acharya. He's the founder Acharya. He's meant to provide the foundational relationship, the core identity, as I like to say, for all members of ISKCON for all time. So anybody who is in ISKCON following Srila Prabhupada, that's what we do. Now, as far as, it may differ from, so that's if in temples, you're talking about home worship. So I don't know if there's any standard amongst different god families, like a Jayapataka god family or a Radhanath god family or a Bhakti Tirtha god family, what those spiritual masters have said. I know what some have said, and some say, yeah, you worship Srila Prabhupada every day at Guru Puja. And then as far as, worshiping me on my birthday, we can do it, at our own place. But for public worship, it's Prabhupada. So I can't give you a definitive answer on, your God family, you have multiple gurus, I think, in Delaware, right? You have people with multiple.
Yes.
Yeah.
We all have different gurus. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's healthy. That's good. So it really depends on the standard in their God family. If they have a standard, I don't know. That's as much as I can say. So, Krishna Kirtan Prabhu, I'm sorry to say it's over time and I have to run because I'm still knocking out answers to questions that Gopal Bhatta Prabhu is going to ask me tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. my time for the strategic planning committee, seminars on Prabhupada's preeminent position. So I've got to run and still finish. I don't want to be surprised by my own questions because I've given him the questions and now he wants me to write out the answers. Or I do. I want to have my own notes. So let's wrap it up with our hosts. Thank you for listening.
Prabhu, you want to give some closing words? Prabhu?
I'd just like to thank you, Suresvara Prabhu, for your presentation. If I can add one thing, as I was going through the GBC resolutions from 2013, which you mentioned, and there it said that all ISKCON devotees are encouraged to write an homage to Srila Prabhupada as Vyas Puja Day, which I thought was a wonderful way to do, as suggesting as to keep us in Srila Prabhupada consciousness. But it's I really feel encouraged and appreciative of the knowledge that you gave us today. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening. And I'll tell you one good thing, because I do have a question, because I'm giving kind of a history of Prabhupada's preeminent position tomorrow. And a big difference between the 1994 resolution, the first founder Acharya statement we looked at, and the 2013 was that the 1994 resolution, in general, it was about Prabhupada's position, his position as founder Acharya. The 2013 resolution was more personal. It was more about everyone's relationship with Prabhupada. It really marked as a distinct improvement over the earlier statement, because it was more personal and it was more real, that this is the reality of the founder Acharya and his followers. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up. That Vyasa Puja exercise is really important.
And one nice thing in Philadelphia is that Mother Sangeeta has made a Prabhupada display in the front lobby. Unfortunately, it's kind of cut off now because of COVID-19, but newcomers can come and look and see the life of Srila Prabhupada is displayed in pictures with captions in the front lobby.
Wow, that's great. That's perfect. That's like a living Lilamrita, visual Lilamrita. Nice. Well, thanks so much, Prabhu's. It's really on the lunar anniversary of Prabhupada's disappearance. I couldn't think of a better way to celebrate it than sharing with you all Prabhupada's glories. So, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very, very
Hare
informative.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. Thank you.
Jai.
Thank you, Prabhuji, so much.
Now, believe it or not, Drona, I'm trying to figure out how to get out of here. Not where do I go?
You have to say.
I can end it, but if you go to the top of your screen, end view, end share screen.
Oh. Stop share. That's what it says.
Stop share.
Stop share. And then, then it says leave. Oh, I'm feeling a separation.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
Thank
Hare
you.
All
Krishna.
glories.
All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Jai, Philadelphia, Delaware Yatras ki jai.
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Haribol.
And then there were a couple of questions that are on the chat, as well as a couple of hands raised. If you want to send them in, we can maybe somehow find a way to get them answered. But it looks Suresvara Prabhu has to, as he mentioned.
You can email me.
Maybe next class, Prabhuji.
Where's that email address available? Can I get it from Dronacharya?
Yes, you can.
Right, thank you.
Yeah, we'll send it
All
out. We'll send it out to the.
Okay. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna.
I don't know, Dronacharya Prabhu. We should probably give some kind of donation for his. I mean, not that he's asking for it.
Yes.
But
Prabhu, it was just spellbound. I've heard it do this before. It's the most moving thing I've heard. I'm just rattled. Unbelievable. I'll give a donation.
Yeah, the temple will send them a donation.
Well, you could put me in for something.
Okay.
You'll get it from me.
Anybody that would like to the donation to, you can give to the temple and we'll forward it to him.
Yeah, he's not asking for it, but it's like,
Action.
Yeah. It was very, 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 very good, excellent presentation. Couldn't be better. Couldn't have been better. Thank you. Thank you for arranging this.
Thank you, Vishnu Gada Prabhu.
Who arranged it?
Helped arrange.
He arranged it.
Vishnu Gada Prabhu made the arrangements for tonight with Suresvara Prabhu. Excellent idea. Next week we'll continue with our Vaishnav etiquette course. It'll be week 3. The topic will be sadhana habits. So please make sure you tune in. We'll send out a quiz for this. I don't know if we'll be able to send out the presentation, but we'll send out some questions to go over some of the key points for tonight. And those of you who were not part of the course and would like to join, you can still join next week along with us. We'd love to have you, as well as every morning we have class at 7:50 a.m. On the same Zoom channel. And in the evening, Thursday evening at 7 o'clock, we have Srila Prabhupada book study night, organized by Vishnu Prabhu. One of the things Suresvara Prabhu mentioned is that it's good for local temples to have a Lilamrita study, Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita study, and that's been going on for many, many years through the organization of Vishnu Prabhu. So if you're interested in learning about the pastimes of Srila Prabhupada, please join at Thursday at 7 o'clock. Okay, have a good night. Bunch of
Patishanam Paravebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Let's see. Yes, Prabhu. Nice to see you. Nice to see everyone.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.